President Donald Trump outburst followed Zelensky's comments on February 18 that the U.S. president was parroting Russian disinformation when he asserted that Ukraine should never have started the war, which began with Russia's full-scale invasion 3 years ago.
Well, we have a situation where we haven't had elections in Ukraine, where we have martial law, or essentially martial law in Ukraine, where the leader in Ukraine, I mean, I hate to say it, but he's down at 4% approval rating.
Zelensky responds to Trump's criticism immediately.
Thank you very much.
Тобто, на жаль, президент Трамп з великою повагою до нього відносимося як до лідера народу, який ми дуже поважаємо, американський народ, який нас постійно підтримує. На жаль, живе в цьому дезінформаційному просторі.
Zelensky emphasized that Trump's assertion that his approval rating was just 4% was Russian disinformation, and that any attempt to replace him would fail. The latest poll from the Kyiv International Institute of Sociology, from early February, found 57% of Ukrainians trust Zelensky. Worldwide News reports.
In response to President Donald Trump's comments on Ukraine, Ukrainians in Kyiv strongly rejected his suggestion that Ukraine was to blame for the war with Russia and should hold elections during the ongoing conflict.
Я вважаю, що це невірна політика і невірне звинувачення України. Звинувачують жертву, і він стає на бік ворога.
Були Будапештські домовленості, їх ніхто не виконав. Зараз розказують нам казачки про якихось 3 роки, які ми мали домовлятись. Прошу.
Many expressed frustration, with some urging Ukraine to focus on its survival and rely on Europe, especially neighboring Poland and the Baltic states.
Нам треба проводити свою політику. Америка раз не хоче допомагати, то хай залишається в своїй сфері, хай займається індокитайським регіоном. Нам треба контактувати з Європою. В першу чергу з Балтійськими державами, з поляками і відстоювати свої інтереси. Я офіцер запасу і вважаю, що треба боротися далі до кінця. Треба себе поводити так, як веде себе Ізраїль. Євреї молодці, не дивляться ні на Америку, ні на
In neighboring Warsaw, residents voiced growing concerns over Trump's shifting stance on Ukraine. Many fear that his remarks could signal a change in U.S. foreign policy, unsettling Europe's security and stability.
To, co robi Trump i co dzisiaj powiedział, że to jest wina Ukrainy, że Ukraina zaczęła tą wojnę, no to już jest troszeczkę przesada. Dlatego mówię, my się musimy obawiać. I Europa, jeżeli się teraz nie zjednoczy, ja nie mówię, żeby robili swoją armię, ale żeby zaczęli więcej wydawać na zbrojenia, to może być problem. Bo Rusek jest nieobliczalny.
Worldwide News Report.
President Donald Trump doubled down on his criticism of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on February 19, telling a conference in Florida that the Ukrainian leader has done a terrible job and could have come to talks with Russia in Saudi Arabia if he had wanted to.
President Zelensky talked the United States of America into spending $350 billion to go into a war that basically couldn't be won, that never had to start and never would have started if I was president, not even a chance. And it didn't start for 4 years, never would have started. But a war that he, without the U.S. and Trump, will never be able to settle. They'll never settle that war without our involvement. That's why they did such a great job this weekend. That's why Saudi Arabia did such a great job this weekend in hosting.
Trump accused the Ukrainian leader of being a dictator and warned he had to move quickly to secure peace or risk losing his country, deepening a feud between the two leaders that has alarmed European officials.
He refuses to have elections, is low in the real Ukrainian polls. I mean, how can you be high with every city is being demolished? It's hard to be high. Somebody said, oh no, his polls are good. Give me a break.
Zelensky's 5-year term was supposed to end in 2024. But presidential and parliamentary elections cannot be held under martial law, which Ukraine imposed in February 2022 in response to Russia's invasion. Worldwide News reports.
Senator joined protesters outside the Department of Health and Human Services to denounce cuts to the National Institutes of Health (NIH) under the Department of Government Efficiency led by Elon Musk. Protesters, including union leaders and federal workers, criticized the layoffs of 1,165 NIH staff and pledged to take legal action against the administration's moves.
I'm going to try out a new chant for you, all right? How about this one? Hey, hey, RFK, hands off the FDA. Hey, hey, RFK, hands off the FDA.
The number accounts for around 6% of the 20,000 people employed by the NIH, an agency overseeing 27 institutes, and the top public funder of medical research, on everything from vaccines for emerging pandemic threats to targets for new drugs.
And there's no sugarcoating this. These cuts will kill more Americans. When you conduct research into cancer, into diabetes, into Alzheimer's, into heart disease, and into all the other diseases that plague American families, you are saving lives. And taking that away will result in more Americans dying early and more American suffering.
Meanwhile, the Trump administration also rescinded approval for New York City's congestion pricing program. Critics say it's essential for funding city transit improvements. Transit officials say the program has cut commuting times, and that inbound trip times on all river crossings are now 10% to 30% faster or more, while subway ridership also has grown since the toll was introduced. Worldwide News Report.
US President Donald Trump said on February 19th he will announce tariffs related to lumber, cars, semiconductors, and pharmaceuticals over the next month or sooner.
Three of the majors, they called and they said, we're looking all over the place. We want to be there. I'm going to be announcing tariffs on cars and sters and chips and pharmaceuticals, drugs and pharmaceuticals, and lumber probably, and some other things over the next month or sooner.
Trump emphasized that the tariff policy is meant to bring business back to the U.S.
It's going to have a big impact on America. We're bringing our businesses back. If they don't make their product in America, then they have to pay a tariff. But if they do make their product in America, they don't have to pay any tariff, which will it's all going to bring trillions of dollars into our treasury, or it's going to mean that there won't be any taxes because we want to have a fair base.
Trump's threats have changed over time, leaving other nations and businesses unclear of what is to come next. Some economists and experts have warned Trump's sweeping tariffs will stoke inflation. Worldwide News reports. The Philippine Coast Guard on Tuesday accused the Chinese Navy of dangerous flight maneuvers after a Chinese military helicopter flew dangerously close to a Philippine aircraft over the disputed Scarborough Shoal in the South China Sea. The Philippine aircraft, conducting a maritime domain awareness flight, was reportedly flown within just 3 meters of the Chinese helicopter.
The helicopter should have observed the proper and safe distance. Dahil alam naman natin how dangerous it will be. Konting banggaan lang, no? With that close proximity can lead to disaster. As far as our action is concerned, what we did is legitimate and routine maritime domain awareness flight. It is not illegal, and if you're going to ask me who is the one carrying out such aggressive and illegal actions, that will only be the People's Republic of China.
Meanwhile, China claims sovereignty over the area, calling the Philippine flight an intrusion into Chinese airspace. Worldwide News Report. President Vladimir Putin on February 19th praised the outcome of Russia-U.S. talks in Saudi Arabia and said that Ukraine would not be excluded from negotiations to end the war.
Что касается переговорного процесса, то мне в ходе телефонного разговора президент Трамп сказал, могу это подтвердить, что, конечно, Соединенные Штаты исходят из того, что переговорный процесс будет происходить при участии и России, и Украины. Никто Украину из этого процесса не исключает. Поэтому нет оснований для такой реакции на российско-американскую встречу.
Putin also said that Europe isn't hysterical about being at US-Russia negotiations, saying US and Russia have no need for meditation.
Они что, хотят сидеть здесь за столом переговоров и быть посредниками между Россией и Соединенными Штатами? Ну, наверное, нет. Ну, зачем же здесь истерить-то? Истерика неуместна.
Putin praised the outcome of Tuesday's meeting in Saudi Arabia, where Russia and the US agreed to appoint negotiating teams on Ukraine, and discussed ways to reset their bilateral relations, which the Kremlin described as below zero under Trump's predecessor Joe Biden. Worldwide News reports.